How do you create fear in your audience? The emotion of nightmares. How do you make the audience feel pure fear? A dark question, I know, but that is what I'm going to answer today. So here are 5 tips about how to create intense fear. Even if you're not writing in the horror genre, then in most stories there's almost always going to be a scene that is supposed to be scary, and so these tips can hopefully help you. Oh no, it's my pleasure. But anyway, if you love stories and storytelling tips, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell, and I'll keep you updated with future videos. The first tip, I believe, is the foundation of fear, and that is to create a high level of the unknown. A lot of people say that they've got a fear of the unknown. That's basically like saying they have a fear of fear. In the same way that these two crocs are basically the same thing. So if you can create a high level of the unknown, of something that is perhaps dangerous and the reader doesn't know about, then that will immediately create fear. Of course, you might know about something that you're afraid about. For example, if you know that you're going to be hanged the next day, then you'll probably be afraid about that. But there's always a level of the unknown about things. My hair's but there's always a level of the unknown where you don't quite know what it's going to feel like. You don't know what it's going to feel like to be hanged. You don't know how painful it's going to be, and so you'll be afraid of that. Or if you know that you're going to do an exam, then there's always things that are unknown about the exam. For example, how hard are the questions going to be? Am I going to pass the test? Am I going to need the toilet halfway through the test, and I'm going to be really embarrassed, and I'm going to walk through the whole hall and everyone's going to stare at me as I walk through the hall, I'm going to go to the toilet, and then people are just going to judge me. And that's my struggles. Basically, the unknown creates fear because we don't know how bad it will really be. And so that is the essence of it. But how do you incorporate that unknown into a story so that you can terrify other people? The second tip is to just hide a load of information from the audience. Just take a bunch of information, here it is, like a bunch of bananas, and just hide it from the audience. Often in stories, the villain doesn't reveal themselves until the very end, and this is done on purpose so that the audience is left wondering how bad the villain really is, and so their imagination is creating this intensely horrible picture of the villain, because people's imaginations are capable of the most terrifying feats. So basically, the reader is kept in the dark about what the villain really looks like, what their motives are, and how evil they really are. But here is the crux. It's to reveal just enough information so that the reader can form a terrifying picture in their own imagination without giving too many details that it blocks their imagination from working. And creating the most terrifying image that they can possibly create. So if you can just give the reader's imaginations a little push, and just push them in the right direction so that they can imagine the fear for themselves, then that will create a much higher level of fear than if you give all the details straight away. The next few tips are about exactly how to leave the reader guessing by revealing just enough information, but not too much. But it's to create characters that know a lot while the protagonist and the reader don't really know anything, and to reveal just a bit of information through those characters. For example, in Silence of the Lambs, when Clarice is about to interview Hannibal Lecter, she talks to the doctor just before, and Hannibal Lecter is basically a psychopath who's been put in prison, and Clarice is basically a research student who wants to interview this psychopath. She talks to the doctor who runs the prison, and the doctor says this one sentence before she meets Hannibal Lecter, and listen to this sentence: "Oh, he's a monster, pure psychopath, so rare to capture one alive. From a research point of view, Lecter is our prize asset." This is a genius sentence. It leads them on a whirlwind in their imagination of what Lecter perhaps looks like and how evil he really is. This short description gives the reader a general picture while leaving so much unknown, and it is this unknown that creates the fear. In the same way, if you read a book review, you might know roughly how good the book is, but you still only have a general picture of the book, and you won't know the intricate details. But in terms of creating fear, it is kind of to create a negative picture of something. So in a book review, obviously it's probably usually going to be a positive review of the book if someone is making a book review about it. But to create fear, you basically want to do the opposite, where you create a really horrible, negative, but general picture of someone, so that the reader is left knowing the negative general essence of something, but they don't know the exact details that make it so terrifying. Or in Harry Potter, when Hagrid gives a general explanation of Voldemort to Harry, but leaves so much untouched and doesn't really elaborate elaborate on many details, and so it leaves a horrible picture of what Voldemort could be like in the reader's mind and in Harry's mind, and so we're left terrified for the whole series. Only near the end of the books and near the end of the series is Voldemort really revealed to us. For as much time as possible, the reader is left guessing what he is actually like and how evil he really is, and so when he does appear, it is even more climactic because the reader has been kept in suspense for so long, and then the fear is suddenly revealed in all its fullness. Or in The Woman in Black, when Arthur Kipps is walking through the village for the first time, all of the village inhabitants are basically in the know, and they know about the Woman in Black, and they know what she's capable of, but Arthur Kipps doesn't know, and it's basically another level of unknown, and he only discovers things very slowly. So create characters that know a lot about the danger, but only reveal a small amount of that information, enough to leave the reader only guessing about it. Tip number 4 is to think about the setting for your story, because basically most horror stories are set in a place which has a lot of cover and a lot of places to hide. For example, a haunted house or a castle with lots of winding staircases, which basically indicates that there's something that is being concealed, something dark that doesn't want to show itself until it chooses to. There's a lot of places that evil can lurk beyond the realm of your sight. Or you could get more creative. It could be set on a haunted spaceship or in an intricate maze. Doctor Who is a perfect example of how to create fear. If you just watch any episode of Doctor Who, then immediately you will have a better understanding of probably how to create fear. But creating a setting for your story is a really amazing way to be creative and to use a unique setting where there's a lot of places to hide, where evil can hide and jump out and just suddenly. So the 5th tip is to create a character that the audience cares about, because if they care about the character, then they'll want the main character to survive, and so it increases the stakes. So if you do an exam that is more important and has higher stakes, then obviously you're going to be more afraid. So it's better to make your character likable, and the best way to do this, I believe, is just simply to give the character more page time, because the more time you spend with the character, the more you get to know them. And obviously in life as well, the more time you spend with people, the more you get to know them, and the stronger your bond with those people is. And so you care more about those people, and you care more if they get hurt and if they die, obviously. Mate, are you okay? Oh no, he's dead. I'm alive. And so you'd want to create a character that the readers care about, so that when the character is in a position where they're in danger, they can feel like they're rooting for the character to survive. And a bonus tip is to include dramatic irony, which is where you basically reveal things to the audience, but you don't reveal them to the main character. So the audience knows about it, but the character is left in the unknown, and so they don't know what is coming, but the audience does. And because we're rooting for the protagonist, then we'll be anxious that they won't get hurt, and that they will find out what you know, so that they will avoid the danger. So this creates a high level of unknown for the protagonist, but because we're connected to the protagonist emotionally, we feel that sense of unknown from them, even though we know ourselves. So here's a quick summary of the 6 tips about how to create fear. The first one is to create a high level of the unknown, because fear basically is the same as the unknown. And the second tip about how to do this is to hide a lot of information from the audience, so that they're left guessing what is going to happen. Not reveal too much information so that the reader can't imagine the horrors themselves. And the third tip is about how to reveal just enough information to do this. It's to create other characters that know a lot, while the protagonist doesn't really know anything, and the characters only reveal some of the information that they know. And tip number 4 is to think about the setting for your story, and to create a place that has a lot of places to hide and a lot of places where evil can be concealed. And the 5th tip is to make the audience care about your character, because unless the audience is rooting for the character, then there probably won't be any fear. And the 6th tip is to include dramatic irony, where you reveal things to the reader but not to the protagonist, that the protagonist is left in the unknown and we're rooting for the protagonist to find out what we know. So those are my 6 tips. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and comment what is the scariest scene that you've ever read or watched, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.